Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Slippy here, and so over the last couple of weeks, Dana White and the UFC have announced a lot of really big fights coming up in 2024. Dana White just put out a video yesterday or the day before talking about the UFC 300 fights and UFC 299 and UFC 298. A lot of really big fights, a lot of really exciting matchups, competitive matchups. I'm going to go over all the ones that I have written down. I'm probably missing some. I'll probably make another video here soon. Okay, I just remembered one that I don't have written down. Anyways, I'm going to go over a bunch of these fights, not really in any particular order, and I'm going to give some early predictions. I won't go too in-depth because I'm going to do a more in-depth breakdown when we get closer to each of these fights. I'll do breakdowns for the card as we get closer to each individual card, but we're just going to start off. I'll just read you guys the list, actually, because these are some crazy fights. If you haven't heard yet, Robert Whittaker is fighting Paulo Costa. I believe that's UFC 299 or UFC 300. I haven't written down which event these are all on. Jeff Neal is fighting Ian Gary. That's a great fight. That's an even bigger step up than Gary was going to get against Vicente Luque. I think it's a harder fight for him. Great fight. I hope Neal breaks his face. Brian Ortega is fighting Yair Rodriguez in a rematch. I don't like this one. I think this is unnecessary. I'll get more into it when we talk about the actual fight. But I don't think Ortega deserved a Yair fight right now. Song Yadong is fighting Kyodor Yan. I believe that's at UFC 299. That's an awesome fight. That's the bantamweight fight that I've been waiting for a long time. I did a prediction video on it when it was first supposed to happen a while back. My prediction hasn't really changed much, but we'll talk about it when we get there. Bo Nickel is fighting Cody Brundage. That's just basically someone being sacrificed to Bo Nickel. Cody might land a big shot, but I expect Bo Nickel to dominate. Yuri Prohaska is fighting Alexander Rakic. This is not really the fight that I was expecting Yuri to get, but it's a good fight, and it makes sense ranking-wise. Yeah, so that's a great one. And then one that I'm personally super excited about, even though I have seen people kind of complain about it online, Aljamain Sterling is moving up to featherweight, and he's fighting Calvin Kattar. Calvin Kattar is my favorite featherweight. I'm really happy to see him back in a fight, and I think this is a pretty winnable matchup for him. But anyways, we're going to start with Robert Whittaker versus Paulo Costa. I think Paulo Costa is going to win by pulling out. I'm joking. I do think there's a pretty good chance Paulo pulls out of this fight. He's already pulled out of 2 fights with Whittaker. He's pulled out of a fight with Cannonier. He's pulled out of a fight with Chimaev. He's pulled out of a fight with Ikram Aliskerov. He's the pullout king. If this fight happens, which I'm kind of doubtful, but maybe it will. Maybe if Paulo would be a little too afraid to pull out of a fight again. Whittaker did call him out a while back, so it makes sense that they're making this fight. I expect Whittaker to completely school him, and if Paulo wins, it's because he catches Whittaker, because Whittaker, as much as I love him and as much as I think he's an amazing fighter and he is one of the best middleweights in the world, he's a little chinny. That's his problem. He doesn't take shots super well. He has pretty good recovery, but it seems like any shot that lands clean on his chin will hurt him. Paulo doesn't have crazy knockout power by any means, so I'm not too worried about it, but it could happen. I don't think Paulo hits like Dricus. I don't think he hits like Israel Adesanya. Paulo doesn't really have hardly any knockouts on his record right now. He couldn't knock out Luke No Chin Rockhold. So I don't see him knocking out Whittaker, especially when Whittaker is much more... he's a much better striker than Rockhold. He's a much more well-rounded fighter than Rockhold, at least the stage that Rockhold was at when Paulo fought him. He's more defensively aware. Dude's fast, great striking. He can mix in takedowns. He doesn't have very good control when he gets people down, but he does have really good takedown entries, and he usually lands the takedowns when he shoots them. He just doesn't hold people down very well. I definitely don't think he'll hold down Paulo Costa, because Costa just uses one arm and shoves people off of him like it's nothing usually. But I don't think he needs to take Costa down. I think he can just tune him up on the feet. If Paulo Costa wasn't able to beat Marvin Vettori on the feet when he had a huge weight advantage and he messed up that whole fight. You guys remember he fought Vettori and he was supposed to make 185 and he basically just said, no thank you, I won't make 185, let's fight at 205 or whatever it was. It might have even been more than 205. And then they get in the cage, and Costa looked enormous in that fight. Vettori's a big middleweight. Costa dwarfed him in that fight, and Vettori beat him, mostly with striking. If you're losing to Vettori in the striking department, I can't trust you to beat Whittaker. Look at what Whittaker did to Vettori. I'm not saying Vettori's bad. I think Vettori's very good, but he's very basic. He's a lot of 1-2s. He does mix in some good elbows and knees sometimes, but Whitaker's faster than Vettori. I think he has more power than Vettori, even though he doesn't knock a lot of guys out. I do think he has more power. He has better takedowns than Vettori. He doesn't have as good control as Vettori, I don't think, but better takedowns. He mixes it up on the feet better. I think that 1-2 head kick that Whitaker throws will land all day on Costa because I don't think Costa got the best striking defense. Costa's boxing is pretty good. I think it's a little underrated, but his power extremely overrated. He's more of a volume striker. He's got like T-Rex arms for a middleweight, really short arms. He is fast. He is very strong. Maybe if he just goes in there with the right mindset, he could bully Whitaker into the, like, cornering him against the fence and just unleash the hardest punches that he can possibly throw on Whitaker, and maybe he'll be able to put him down with volume. I don't see that happening. I think Whitaker's going to kind of tune him up for the whole fight. I believe it's a 3-round fight. Yeah, that's just less time that Paulo has to try to catch Whitaker because he's not going to outskill Whitaker. There's no way. So I'm going with Whitaker by like 30-27 decision. Pretty clearly outpointing Costa the whole fight, probably tuning him up, bruising up his face quite a bit. Costa tries to land some shots. Maybe he lands a few body kicks. He has some nice body kicks. Maybe Costa tries to go for a takedown himself. He's very strong. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets it, but Whitaker's very good on the ground. I think he'll be able to get back up. Yeah, I'm going Whitaker, 30-27. Like, pretty clear, comfortable, easy win for Robert Whitaker. Another fight, Jeff Neal versus Ian Gary. My heart says Jeff Neal, but my brain kind of says Ian Gary. I do think Jeff Neal, he's a huge step up, obviously, from anybody Ian Gary's beaten. He's better than who Ian Gary was going to fight, which was Vicente Luque. He gave Vicente Luque like a brain bleed. That's how bad Jeff Neal beat him. He beat him up horribly and knocked him out. Jeff Neal's got really good boxing, and he's got nasty power, and he's a dog, and you do not want to get close to Jeff Neal. I don't think there's a person in the welterweight division that can get in the pocket with Neal and come out victorious, except maybe Jack Della Maddalena. Even then, I'd probably go with Neal. I think Jack Della Maddalena would probably have a better time if he stuck to the jab and the 1-2 in that fight and tried to snipe him and counter shots. You don't want to get in there and trade with Jeff Neal. And also, I think Jeff Neal can take Ian Gary's hardest shots. I don't think Ian Gary can take Jeff Neal's hardest shots. Ian Gary's been dropped and hurt a couple times in his fights. He seems to get hit pretty clean by everybody that he fights. And if you get hit clean too many times by Neal, I don't trust you to survive it. The dude's got nasty power. I am slightly leaning toward Jeff Neal. The reason that I'm kind of thinking Ian Gary might get the win isn't necessarily because of his skill set. It's just because for some reason in the UFC, if you're a big star, you just win. I don't know what it is about that, but I mean, even Paddy Pimblett, who isn't that good, he gets his robbery victory over Jared Gordon. And Ian Gary's way better than Paddy Pimblett. But yeah, I don't know. Stars don't seem to lose much in the UFC. I'm not saying it's rigged because Conor loses, so... But yeah, I am going to go with Jeff Neal. I'm just not super confident in it. Ian Gary is a very good striker. I don't really like to admit that because I don't like the guy. But he's super good. I could see him sticking the jab on Jeff Neal and keeping it a distance. He has longer reach. He's taller. I could see him doing that. You look at like what Wonder Boy did to Neal. He pretty much shut him down with his rangy striking. I don't think Ian Gary's on that level, but he could probably do something similar. I just don't really trust him to not get hit at some point. Over and over again, to be honest. I think Jeff Neal will land on his chin multiple times, and I think at one point that will put him down, at least drop him a couple times and win the rounds that way. But I kind of think Jeff Neal's going to get like a second-round knockout. Moving on to the next fight, Brian Ortega versus Yair Rodriguez. So I said that I'm not really a fan of this fight, and the reason is Ortega hasn't beaten anybody since he fought the Korean Zombie, which was a few years ago now. And he's been, if you look through his career, like, he doesn't have that many good wins, to be honest. He beat Frankie Edgar. Where's Frankie Edgar right now? He's beat the Korean Zombie. Where's the Korean Zombie right now? And he's been, like, completely dominated by Max Holloway. He was dominated by Volkanovski. People talk about how that was, like, a great competitive fight. It wasn't. It was a great dominant fight where he had, like, 30 seconds of success with attempted submissions that he ended up failing, so it wasn't even really success. It just looked like success. And he had maybe 15 seconds at the end of the 5th round when Volk already knew that he won. Volk very clearly beat him pretty much every single round of that fight. He dominated him. Yair's looked really good in his previous fights. Also, yeah, their first time they fought, people say it was like a fluke. Oh, Ryan Ortega got injured, so it's not like a real win for Yair. Brian Ortega got injured because he was put in a submission by Yair, and he wasn't able to get out of it properly, and he popped his shoulder. And before that, he was getting tuned up on the feet really bad. He wasn't landing like anything clean, and Yair was landing everything on Ortega. I think Yair is just, he's a couple levels ahead of Ortega on the feet, and on the ground, he's like still really dangerous, and Ortega hasn't done anything that impressive on the ground in a while other than putting Volk in a submission that he didn't even get. I feel like Ortega at this point, he should have gotten a step down in competition. He's extremely inactive. He hasn't won a fight in quite a while. I don't know why he's ranked so high. He shouldn't be in the top 5 anymore. The dude should be stepping way back and fighting a Giga Chikadze or a Bryce Mitchell or a Mavzar Evloev or someone like that. He should not be fighting Yair again. Even like a Calvin Kattar. I don't know why we haven't got an Ortega versus Kattar fight yet. I think Kattar probably beats him. I think he could stuff the takedowns and outstrike Ortega on the feet because Ortega doesn't outstrike hardly anybody except freaking the Korean Zombie at this point. So yeah, I'm going Yair again. I think Yair's going to tune him up on the feet, and I think he's going to finish him pretty quick. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a first round KO. Ortega has a heck of a chin. I'll give him that, but like, I'm not saying that he'll get knocked out unconscious. I just think he'll probably get beat up really bad and maybe finished against the cage. Yair is just really vicious on the feet. He showed to be way better than Ortega in the first fight. I'm not going to trust Ortega to come back better than he was in the first fight if he's been so inactive and he's coming off of that injury. Yeah, I'm going Yair. I probably won't say first round finish. I'll just say finish. I think he's going to get a TKO on Brian Ortega at some point in the fight. Moving on, Song Yadong versus Petr Yan. This one's been announced for a little while now. It's a 3-round fight, and because of that, I'm going to go with Song Yadong. He's more active than Petr Yan on the feet. He's faster than Petr Yan. I think he hits harder than Petr Yan. I think their boxing technique is pretty comparable. I think they're very similar in a lot of ways on the feet. Petr Yan has better setups and better defense, and he feints more. Song Yadong doesn't feint a whole lot. He kind of throws naked punches. But he's so fast that he still ends up landing the most of the time. He had trouble landing on Gutierrez, but Gutierrez was keeping him at range with all those long kicks, the teeps to the body and all that. Petr Yan doesn't really do that. He likes to box, and he'll throw leg kicks in there and stuff. But he's mostly in the boxing range, and in the boxing range with Song Yadong is a dangerous place to be. And when people throw power at Petr Yan, this is kind of the main reason I'm picking Song. When people throw shots at him, he tends to shell up and back up, and he does this, and he's in 100% defense mode, protecting his head, which is good. It keeps him from getting finished. It keeps him from getting hurt too bad. But it doesn't look good to the judges, and if Song Yadong is unleashing power shots on him at any point, and he does that every single time, I'm expecting Song Yadong to sneak some shots in there and land some good shots, and he'll probably just land more than Petr does every round. And he also has the takedowns to go to now. He's been mixing in wrestling a lot more. And if he can just mix them in, not necessarily to get Petr to the ground, but to make Petr think about it, he has more data to download. He has more to think about in the fight. And I could just see Song Yadong being more active in winning the fight, like 29-28, maybe losing the third round. Yeah, I'm going to go with Song Yadong, though. I think it sucks to say because Petr Yan, not that long ago, we thought he was the scariest guy in the division. He was the best bantamweight in the world, and I still think he is one of the best. He's just having a really tough run. I feel like he needs to take a step down and get his confidence back against someone that's not top level. I'm not saying he can't beat guys that are top level, but I kind of question his mindset right now. I imagine he's not feeling too good about his losing streak, and we'll have to see how he performs in his next fight. I'm hoping he performs good, but I still think Song Yadong is going to win. Moving on, we got Bo Nickel versus Cody Brundage. That is on UFC 300. I believe it's opening up the prelims. It better not be on the main card. I like Bo Nickel, but he doesn't deserve to be on the main card. Cody Brundage isn't very good, and Bo Nickel's going to beat him really easily. That's what the fight's there for. There's not really much to talk about. Cody Brundage in his last fight, he got like a slam KO against a guy that I don't remember, to be honest. You guys can call me a filthy casual. That's okay. But Cody Brundage, I mean, he got submitted by Rodolfo Vieira. He had like crappy fight IQ in that fight. He knocked him down, and then he went to the ground with a jiu-jitsu black belt, and he gets subbed. I'm pretty sure that's how that went. Maybe he got TKO'd if he got reversed, but I think he got subbed. Um, he's won one fight in his last 4, I think. He's got more losses in the UFC than he has wins. He's pretty much bottom of the barrel in the UFC. Not to disrespect the guy or anything, I don't think he's a step up from like Jamie Pickett. He's a step up from Val Woodburn, I'm sure. But Val Woodburn came out on short notice. You can't judge Bo for that. And I don't judge Bo for taking this fight either. The UFC is probably just trying to build him slowly, which I'm fine with because the dude's 5-0 in MMA. We don't need to rush him to the top like some people think you do. I'm fine with him taking his time. I'm fine with him getting just some cage time in there, getting the good experience that he needs. And he's probably going to get another nasty finish over Cody Brundage. I expect him to take down Cody Brundage and sub him in the first round with very little trouble. So moving on, Yuri Prochazka versus Alexander Rakic. I think Rakic is really good, and he has some of the nastiest leg kicks in the UFC. He kicked Anthony Smith like twice and destroyed his leg. I mean, it was more than that. But he destroys people's legs in these fights. But he's coming off of an injury in his fight against Jan Blachowicz. I don't believe he's fought since then. And it was a leg injury. Usually those don't heal super well. I feel like guys don't always come back the same from those. And he doesn't have crazy power in his hands, and he doesn't have the best striking ever outside of his kicks. He has pretty good kicks. And he can grapple, but so can Yuri. And I know Yuri just got knocked out by Pereira, but that's Pereira. He's probably the hardest hitting guy in the division outside of maybe a Johnny Walker or a Khalil Roundtree. Pereira hit super hard, and I think that was a really bad matchup for Yuri because Yuri is so weird on the feet and he's so open to shots that of course he's going to get caught by this power punching kickboxer who's one of the best kickboxers in the world and one of the hardest hitting men in the world. I don't really blame Yuri too much for getting caught by him, but I think Yuri's weirdness and his power and his ability to mix things up and just throw shots from strange angles will work fine on Rakic, especially because Rakic isn't the most technical striker in the world, and I think that he'll be able to finish Rakic inside the distance. I think it'll take a little while. I think he'll have to wear him out, and I think he'll catch him in like the third round and get a flush, like out cold knockout, because that's what Yuri does. Moving on, Aljamain Sterling versus Calvin Kattar. This is the last fight that I've written down. I'll talk about one more after this. I'm going Calvin Kattar. I know he's coming off of a leg injury. I just said with Rakic, those guys don't seem to come back the same when they get their leg injured. But Kattar, his whole career, he's had really good takedown defense. He's never really struggled with grapplers or with guys taking him down. He has some decent offensive wrestling himself. He's bigger than the guys Aljo's used to fighting. Aljo's not going to be able to muscle him around the way he's used to muscling around bantamweights. And he's just a much better striker than Aljo. Aljo has a lot of volume on the feet, but he has no power, even against bantamweights. I don't think it's going to change against featherweights. He can get hurt. He just got knocked out by O'Malley. I bet Kattar hits harder than O'Malley. He's bigger, and Kattar has quite a few nasty knockouts on his record. Go watch his knockout of Shane Burgos. Shane Burgos is known for having a crazy good chin and being a warrior, and it was kind of a goofy stoppage, but Kattar dropped him twice, nasty uppercuts in the finishing sequence. You should go watch that. It's one of my favorite finishes that I've ever seen. To be honest, it was just absolutely vicious by Kattar. Knocked out Jeremy Stevens with an elbow. He's knocked out Ricardo Lamas. He even at one point in the Holloway fight where I know he got violated really bad, he still slumped Holloway a little bit at one point. Holloway has an insane chin, as we all know, but there's at one point in that fight Holloway's rushing in and Kattar catches him with the right hand, and he very, very briefly looked like he almost shut off for half a second and then came back right away. He didn't even go down, but you could tell it was that was a good punch, and most guys would have gone out from that. Kattar's got good hands. He's got good power. He's got good takedown defense. I think he has everything that he needs to beat Aljo. Don't know if he'll finish him. I think I'll go with Kattar by decision just because he doesn't get a lot of finishes nowadays. But I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes Aljo. I could see him landing just a solid 1-2 when Aljo doesn't expect him to be able to hit him. He's probably used to fighting guys with shorter arms. He might not be ready for someone as big and powerful as Kattar. And I just don't think he can hurt Kattar on the feet at all. I don't think Aljo throws anything that will bother Kattar. Kattar himself has a really good chin. He's never been finished outside of, I don't believe he's ever been finished outside of his injury to Arnold Allen. And so, yeah, I'm going to go with Calvin Kattar by decision. 30-27 or 29-28. Maybe Aljo gets his back for one round and kind of rides it out, but I don't even really see that happening. I think Kattar should be able to win the fight pretty comfortably, which is unfortunate for Aljo because he's moving up and he wants to test out a new division. I just don't think this was the best matchup for him to test out the division against. I think it would have been better for him to fight either a higher ranked guy where there's maybe higher risk but higher reward, or a lower ranked guy like a Bryce Mitchell or something, or another grappler. Like, it would have been cool to see Aljo fight Evloev. That would have been a fun fight. But yeah, I think Kattar's going to win. All right, one more fight that I'm going to talk about. I don't have it written down, but Gilbert Burns is fighting Jack Della Maddalena. I'll try to make this one quick because the video's too long. I'm going to go with Jack Della Maddalena. Gilbert Burns probably more well-rounded. He has better grappling. I don't think he's going to land any takedowns on Jack. I think he'll test out the feet a little bit, and I don't think he'll have to test it out for very long before Jack Della Maddalena chins him, to be honest. Gilbert's really fast. He hits pretty hard. He has a bad chin. It's just the truth. His chin's not good. For some reason, it was good in the Hamzat fight, but outside that, it's not generally very good. And Jack Della Maddalena, I just think this is a changing of the guard. He's much younger. Gilbert's just getting older as time goes on. He looked not so great in his last couple fights. He had a dominant performance against Masvidal, but not as dominant as it probably should have been considering what everybody else was doing to Masvidal. He lost to Bilal Muhammad. I know his arm was injured in that fight, but still, you lost to Bilal Muhammad on the feet for the most part, so that's not a good sign if you're going to fight Jack Della Maddalena, who's one of the best strikers in the division coming up. Some of the nastiest hooks, some of the best timing on his punches. He's not even that fast, but he just lands what he throws, and he has knockout power. He's knocked out most of his opponents. I trust him to knock out chinny Gilbert Burns in the first round. I think it'll be kind of a slow-paced fight where they're just testing each other, and Jack is just waiting for the right shot, and I think he'll find it early, and I think he'll put Burns away, and it'll be a really big moment for him, and he'll get shot up the rankings, and he'll probably be one fight away from a title shot after that. So yeah, that's the video. A bunch of amazing fights coming up. If I missed any, let me know in the comments. If you disagree with any of my picks, let me know that too. Just comment whatever you think about any of these fights. What's your favorite fight coming up? How excited are you for these cards? Drop a like if you want, that'd be cool, or dislike, that's fine too. If you could subscribe, I'd appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one.